indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get going with the consent agenda, I have Adam's going to talk to us a little bit at first about the Winsted Police Department.
Sure. Recently, the police department underwent is this annual, Chief, or is this every 5 years? They had their Minnesota Board of Peace Officer Standards audit, so that's the post board. Came and did their compliance audit. The post board notified myself and subsequently the city council that the audit was clear and that our police department was doing a fantastic job of updating policies and administering the department as required. So they asked me to give special recognition to our police department, and I think it's well warranted. I know Chief Held spends a substantial amount of time of reviewing policy suggestions and policy requirements and subsequently working with myself to get those policies put into place. So thank you, Chief Held, for your efforts in staying in compliance with the post board, especially this day and age with public safety and how that is potentially scrutinized. I think it's important that we continue to be above the board in terms of implementing the required policies. So again, thank you, Chief Held, for your efforts there.
Thank you. The consent agenda. A, approve the minutes of the following: City Council work session, April 19th, 2022. City Council regular meeting, April 19th, 2022. B, authorize the Winsted Art Council organization to conduct 4 events and have food trucks available at Mill Reserve Park on July 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th, 2022, and waive any applicable permits or fees for the use of the park on those dates. Approve the off-sale, on-sale, and Sunday liquor licenses for the July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023 for the following: J&N Schlegel Enterprises 2, the Blue Note, 320 3rd Street North, the Corner Bar and Grill of Winsted, 111 1st Street North, Ape Hangers LLC Kegs Bar, 121st 1st Street North, The Songs Liquor, 132-6 6th Street North, off sale only. Approve the Liquor, Wine Club, or 3-2 license from July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, and waive the fee for said license for the following: Winsted Baseball Club Incorporated at Dennis M. Campbell Field. Approve the 3-2 off-sale liquor license from July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023 for the following: Casey's General Store, 1673-240-6th Street North. Declare a portable generator, backhoe, and root dresser as surplus equipment and eligible for sale as recommended by the Public Works Department, and authorize the city administrator to determine the process and the best method for sale of equipment. Approve the claims list for May 3, 2022. I need a motion for that.
Mr. Mayor, I'll motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. There's no public hearings and there is no old business. So we'll go for the new business in items of year 2021 audit report. Adam.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. This evening, Justin McGraw of Conway, Duth, and Schmiesing is here to present on the 2021 audit report. Justin?
Thank you very much. Good evening. Yes, my name is Justin McGraw. I'm with CDS, the city's auditors, and I'm here tonight to cover your 12/31/2021 financial statements. And you probably got a few different products from us in preparation for this. One is your complete set of financial statements. That is the That's the basis for the presentation tonight. We kind of pulled some of the highlights out of it. I'm going to follow the format that's on the screen. And there's another item you probably got from us, and it's we call it the manager letter, but it's really a letter from us as auditors to you at the council level to let you know how the audit went and any suggestions or recommendations we may have that we came up with throughout our audit. So if I'm going through this tonight and you think you want some more detail, the financial statements are a great place to start. Otherwise, feel free to interrupt me and ask your questions as I go through it. On the first slide here, it's a summation of what our independent auditor's report is. It outlines responsibilities of both parties, us as auditors, you as the city. And it describes the intent of our audit, which is to determine if your financial statements are free of material misstatement, and then the standards we follow to get to that determination. So on the next page, you'll see if you, in big bold highlights there at the top, your financial statements are presented fairly in our opinion. They can be relied upon for gauging performance of the city as well as for future decision-making purposes. On the next page here, we jump into the numbers, and this is your statement of net position. So this is the overall balance sheet of the city. It encompasses all operations, all activities, everything that the city does during the year. Starting at the top there, we have your current and other assets. These would be items like cash balances, accounts receivable, prepaid expenses, those types of things. You can see here, you look at 2021 compared to 2020, you had a pretty significant increase in your current assets. Part of that is due to cash balances, driven by, you got the American Rescue Plan funds in 2021, and those haven't been spent yet, as well as you had increases in accounts receivable for the airport improvement fees, fire donations, and a notes receivable balance for the Millburn forgivable grant loan that they got. You have a receivable from them if they don't follow those compliance requirements, and you also have a payable back to the state on the bottom half of this as well for that. Your capital assets, or non-current assets, excuse me, these are made up of primarily your capital assets. That's infrastructure, buildings, equipment, those types of items. You see you did have a decrease in 2020 compared to 2021. That's largely due to the depreciation of old outstanding assets, the wear and tear over their useful life. As that is kind of being worn down, or those assets being worn down, we depreciate them over a period of years. And basically your additions in 2021 were outpaced by the depreciation and the wear and tear of all your items that were outstanding as of 12/30/2020. On the bottom half, you have your current liabilities. These are your routine bills. Claims listing you just talked about, accounts payable, accrued wages, those types of items. You did have an increase there, largely due to that amount owed to the state for the Millburn forgivable loan. However, if they do meet those compliance requirements will forgive a portion of that loan every year, in which case you won't be required to pay it back to the state. So it's really just an in and out with the city acting as a pass-through at that point. Your non-current liabilities, these are primarily your debt balances, so bonds, notes, those types of things. You did have a decrease in 2021 compared to 2020. You didn't issue any new debt in 2021, and you continued to make those scheduled debt service payments throughout the year, so the expectation was that balance would go down, and it did. The net position, this is essentially if you could sell all your assets and pay off all your debts, this is what's left over. We break it down into a few different categories: net investment, capital assets, items that are restricted for just paying down your debt, as well as unrestricted items that can be spent on whatever the city, you at the council feel necessary. And you had an increase again in your net position. This is a trend we have seen for the last few years, and really, unless your operations change dramatically, I would kind of expect that to continue going forward. And I'll remember, this is every operation, every fund, all activities of the city. So on the next slide, we'll jump into the individual funds, starting with the general fund. The general fund is the main operating fund of the city. And here we show your cash and investment balances in 2021 and the prior 4 years. You can kind of see where that trend has been with your general fund cash balances. You had an increase, in 2021 of about $208,000. A lot of that is due to your ARPA funds, those American Rescue Plan funds that are sitting there in the general fund until a decision is made on how those will be spent. So you have some cash in there for that. And you also had, on your revenues and expenditures, your expenditures came in lower than what you have budgeted. So some saving on the expenditure side helped boost your cash balance there as well. On the next slide, here's the overall activity, the revenues, the expenditures, and the fund balance that are in the general fund. Similar trend in 2021 of revenues exceeding expenditures, resulting in an increase in fund balance. There were some transfers into the fund as well that helped boost that fund balance. But looking at your overall fund balance, a part of that is unassigned, where it can be spent on anything. A part of you have signed for a specific purpose, special projects, DWI forfeiture, those types of items, or prevention, I should say. So you have some assigned fund balance in there, you have some unassigned fund balance in there. And looking at your unassigned fund balance, this is kind of a metric that we as auditors use. We look at your unassigned fund balance as it relates to months worth of expenditures in the general fund. And right now you're sitting at about 8 months in that general fund, unassigned fund balance worth of expenditures. So, really, if you had no more revenue coming in to that fund as of 12/31/2021, you have about 8 months there where you could cover that gap until revenue started coming in. It's a good, we recommend anywhere from 4 is probably a minimum, 6 is probably recommended as a healthy fund balance. Anything above that, you're sitting very well. So if there were delays on property tax remittances or LGA remittances from the state, you'd have enough cash essentially in that fund or that general fund to cover those delays. On the next slide, we'll look at your general fund revenues in a little more detail. We look at these by source. So where does the money come that the general fund is using? You can see here, property taxes have historically been the largest source of revenue for the general fund. That's no change in 2021. And really, your revenues are fairly consistent across all categories, with the exception of probably your intergovernmental revenue. And this is driven by those ARPA funds. You have those ARPA funds that came in. You recognize them as revenue in 2021, and now they're kind of sitting there waiting to be spent out. One of the larger decreases you had was licenses and permits. And what we saw there is you had some large permits in 2020 that were probably unusual. Maybe not unusual, but not consistent from year to year. So with those large permits largely being absent in 2021, you saw that kind of come back down to maybe a normal level. On the next slide, we look at the expenditures of the general fund, and this is we look at these by department. So what department is using the funds that the general fund is bringing in? General government, public safety, typically are your largest expenditures. That's no change in 2021. And really, I would expect these trends to probably continue year over year, unless there's some significant changes in the operations of the city that flow through the general fund, or significant capital purchases made within the general fund, that could really impact what department has a higher level of expenditures in there. So that's the general fund. We'll move into some of the other funds on page 8 here, starting with your special revenue funds. So you got a few different special revenue funds out there. Special revenue funds are really set up to perform a specific purpose within the city. You can see here, one of them that had the larger decrease was the fire department fund. There was an increase in your capital outlay within that fund, as well as transfers out of the operating fund to the equipment fund. The equipment fund is considered a capital project fund, and we'll get to those in a little bit here. And then the EDA fund also had a large decrease in its fund balance in 2021. There was a housing needs study performed that the EDA fund paid for in 2021. On the next slide, we'll jump into some of your capital project funds. There's always a healthy amount of capital project funds here at the city of Winsted. And one of the largest increases you saw is the capital equipment revolving fund. That fund kind of is there to serve any capital needs of the city, and you have a healthy fund balance. It's all assigned fund balance. So all the funds that are earmarked within the capital equipment fund are for a specific purpose, whether it be public safety, public works, streets, cultural and rec, those types of items. So you have that cash sitting there for the projects that will come up or are already in progress to be spent down for those purposes. Your largest decrease was the McLeod Avenue project fund. That project was completed. We closed that fund out in 2021 since there's no more expenditures expected related to that project. Industrial Park Stormwater Fund also was closed out as those expenditures have come to their end. And then your airport improvement project, or airport improvement fund, and there's a lot of airport projects on here. But you had an increase there in your fund balance, and that's largely driven by your improvement fees that were applied to the hangar owners out at the airport. So you saw an increase in that fund balance to help boost that up a little bit for any improvements that need to go on at the airport fund or at the airport site that aren't related to the large runway and Northern Natural Gas project. And you have a few funds on there towards the far right, the CSAH 5 extension and the Pheasant Run project fund. They're sitting at a deficit fund balance, and that's largely due to they have expenditures in those funds for those projects. There's just not a financing source for those yet. So in 2022 here, as a finance source comes in for those funds or those projects, you'll see that deficit hopefully be reversed. That was all the governmental funds of the city. Looking at the proprietary or enterprise funds, starting with the water fund. Here again, similar to the general fund, we look at the cash balance in 2021 and in the prior 4 years to kind of see what the trends are. You did have a slight decrease in your cash balance in 2021. Part of that is due to your debt service payments that are in that fund. There's also some larger repairs and maintenance that you'll see on the next few slides that did use the cash that was being generated by the water fund. So on page 11, you can see here's the overall activity of that water fund for 2021 and then the prior 4 years. So you had your expenses overtook the revenues of the water fund, and it's been some time since we've seen that large decrease in your net position. A lot of that is due to depreciation on your current water infrastructure and capital assets. And you are covering a portion of that depreciation expense. If you can cover it all, that's great. Through operations, even 50 to 60% is a good amount to recover on your depreciation through the operations of the water fund and the sewer fund, as you help prepare the fund for future capital replacements and repairs and maintenance that need to be had. In your operating expenses of the water fund did increase in 2021. You can see it jumped up a little bit there. The water meter project that went on during the year, that was a big portion of that. Just replacing those water meters is maybe not at that level, it's not a thing that's expected to be happening every year. You may have onesie, twosies, or small batches of them. So I would expect in 2022, barring any other large replacement projects like that, to see that kind of come back down. And then on slide 12 here, we look at the water fund's ability to pay its debt service payments through cash provided by operations. That's essentially what's going on. We remove some of those non-cash items like that depreciation expense to see if the water fund is generating enough just through day-to-day operations to make those debt service payments. You can see here in 2021, it did not do that. That is largely driven by the large expense for the water meter project. Excuse me. So, absent that large project, I would expect in 2022 for the water fund's user charges to be able to cover not only operating expenses, but generate enough cash to make those debt service payments. And then on page 13, we look at the sewer fund. Sewer fund cash and investment balances. Again, 2021, the prior 4 years, 17, 18, you still had a lot of cash sitting in that fund for the wastewater treatment plant project. As that got spent down, 19 was probably your first kind of normal year without large projects going on. You did have an increase in 2020, and then 2021 it took a step back. Again, the sewer fund has a portion of that water meter replacement project, just due to how sewer charges are applied to individual accounts. So that water meter project did use some of that cash, as well as you saw an increase in your professional services within the sewer fund that helped draw down on that cash a little bit as well. On the next slide, we look at the activity of the sewer fund. You can see here revenues. 2020 was a great year for the sewer fund. Revenues covered the expenditures and then some, even covered that depreciation. You can see here in 2021, it's still generated an increase in your net position for the sewer fund, just not at the level that we saw last year. Again, a lot of that is due to elevated expenses that we don't expect to be routine, or you probably don't expect to be routine every year in that sewer fund. And then on page 15, similar to the water fund, we look at the sewer fund's ability to pay its debt through cash provided just through operations. So again, we remove that depreciation expense from there. And you can see it's able to do it again in 2021, even though it had that decrease in that net position change. 2020 was kind of an outlier because it had a refunding debt paid off in there. There was cash available to do that. So your debt service requirements are a little higher in 2020 just for that refunding payment. But 2021 is probably as narrow as that margin hopefully is going to get over the next several years. And I think you have about 16 years remaining on your longest debt. So as that continues to get paid off, you should see the principal requirement go up and your interest expense go down. And that was the numbers I was going to talk about tonight. In addition to auditing your balances, we also audit a few other items. One of them being compliance with state statutes. Are you following state laws that relate to municipalities? We're happy to report we came across no issues of non-compliance within the city, and we look at quite a few things there. We look at compliance with depository of public funds, conflicts of interest, contract and bidding laws. So that really tells us as auditors a couple things, is that one, that your team here knows what those laws are, and then two, they're making sure they're being followed. So that's great to Adam McKell and everybody else here at City Hall for making sure that those laws are being adhered to. And then internal control, so that government auditing standards findings. Internal control, we look at how financial information flows through the city from the time a bill comes in the mail to the time the check goes out in the mail, and who does what in that process. And there's a few items we have on here. If you've heard my presentation before, these things are not new. One of them is the limited segregation of duties as far as who's doing what in that financial transaction recording process with a smaller or limited staff. You will see that at a lot of local governments, that you may have to have one person do several parts of that transaction recording process just because you don't have the people. It's really, it's a internal control finding, we call it, but really it's an opportunity for you at the council level to be another set of eyes on that process, another check when you approve those claims listing, vendors listing. Take a look at them, feel free to answer or ask questions. If you see an account or a vendor that seems unusual, you can be another check to help mitigate any potential risks or threats that come with those types of findings. And then the other one is the audit prepared financial statements. So what you have in front of you are all derived from your financial records. We do put them in that format, so we have to put that out there as well. And then on the next page, we jump into our management letter, let you know how the audit went, any changes in your accounting practices that came up, any difficulties we encountered. We're happy to report there were none, and we do work with quite a few parties outside of City Hall to get the audit done. Your banks, your engineers, the state, the county, even the federal government with this airport project. So, everybody was very helpful in getting us the information we needed to complete our audit and get us to the point where we're at tonight. So we do appreciate everybody's involvement and help in that process. And then on the last slide, second to last slide, we have some recommendations or discussion points we'd like to talk about. The new one this year relates to a new accounting standard, and it relates to leases. There's been a change in how the Government Accounting Standard Board views leases and how they should be recorded in local government's financial statements. And that's for both if you're a lessee, you're leasing an asset, or if you're a lessor, you're the one leasing it out to another party. There's a different criteria on when an asset should be recorded on your books versus just should be recorded as a period expense. So the big ones you're probably going to see this impact is facility leases, so like the airport hangars. It's one that we're going to have to take a look at with your team here at City Hall and determine, is this amount at a level enough where it's going to impact an individual financial statement user's opinion on the city's statement of net position. And you may see some new items next year when you come out and do your financial statements. You may see lease receivables for those future lease payments that are going to be made for the next 20 or 30 years being booked as an asset in your financial statements. So that's the new hot topic in the government accounting world, if there is such a thing. And then on the last page is my contact information. So if you're looking through some of this stuff in your free time and you think I should have asked Justin this, or I wish I would have asked him that, feel free to call, email, or reach out. Or if you're ever in Litchfield, stop by our office. So with that, I'll open up to any questions that anybody has at this time.
Are there any trends you see that would be cause for concern?
I don't see any trend. I mean, almost all your funds are trending in the right direction. Okay. I did touch on those two capital project funds that are out there that don't have a necessarily dedicated funding source as of the end of last year. But from speaking with Adam and Raquel here, I mean, there's a plan in place to get those projects funded, especially when construction starts. Right now, there's a lot of soft costs in there, engineering expenses. Like before the contractors start digging in the ground, you're going to have that funding in place. So, your fund balances are sitting very well in a lot of your funds. The general fund is borrowing a lot of money to other funds across the city. I think the industrial park property is probably one of the bigger ones that we see out there, and I know you've been getting tenants or people to build out there. Just keeping an eye on the amount of cash borrowed to that fund from the general fund and how that's going to be recouped by the general fund, if ever. Maybe it'll be forgiven. Maybe that's the answer to get people out there. Just that interfund borrowing is the one thing that we always see from year to year, especially because that industrial park property fund's been sitting out there for so long. So.
Adam, anything?
No, any questions from me? To Justin's point, we have some capital projects coming up for this year with the street maintenance project in Pheasant Run, as is indicated. We issued the financing for that, recently some debt service to cover those projects. We did that at the last council meeting. And then CASAT 5, we have some funding sources set up that just they're not indicated, like you said, as of the end of the year.
Right.
So, but otherwise, I feel really comfortable with the audit process. I appreciate Justin's efforts and his team's efforts. Again, great to work with. Justin is great about answering any questions we have throughout the year. And I think that's really helped us in the last 3 or 4 years, where we've come to the audit more prepared because we're asking questions on the front end versus the back end. And Justin always makes himself readily available to help us work through some of those questions throughout the year. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely, anytime.
Openness.
Well, if there's no more questions, then thank you very much for having me out and having the whole CDS team out again here to work on the audit.
Thank you.
Thank you. No other questions? I'll ask for a motion.
No, I don't think any. Oh, yeah, we do need a motion. I apologize, Mr. Mayor.
That's all right.
A motion to accept the year 2021 audit report as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Yep.
Next item under new business is the 2022 street maintenance project. Adam.
Sure. Just bear with me for 1 second, Mr. Mayor. I just need to get this pulled up on my screen. I was following his presentation at the time. Okay. So as we discussed previously in work session, we are recommending the city staff is in doing some pavement management, preventive maintenance here in 2022. Now, this is separate from the previously approved project, mill and overlay projects that are indicated for Pheasant Run and Winstead on the Lake subdivisions. This is really targeted on preventive maintenance as indicated in our 2020 pavement management plan. So the first item I want to discuss is a proposed crack filling project. It's indicated here on the map in red highlighted areas. We're proposing to do about 14,000 pounds of crack filling on these streets. You'll see that obviously Pheasant Run is not indicated or is Winstead on the Lake, and that those roads will be milled and overlaid. None of the county roads will be done. And then also Fairlawn Avenue is not proposed to be done this year as it was recently done. So this is the crack filling portion of the project this evening that is estimated to cost $38,500. The next portion of the project is seal coating, and that is indicated to be done on the southern sections of town as we did the crack filling on those streets last year, all the crack filling and patching. So now this year we want to seal coat them to seal all that work in place as it's kind of the final preventive maintenance step to the pavement management project. So these streets here indicated in red will be granite seal coated. You can see Kingsley's not proposed to be done as that was done with a different product last year as a newer road, as was McLeod Avenue and Industrial Boulevard. None of those streets will be done. But again, we're looking at doing about 66,276 square yards of granite chip sealing at an estimated cost of $94,774.84. And kind of taking a different direction. So we'll seal coat the south half, we'll crack fill the north half, and then we're planning on patching the north half of town with the anticipation of then seal coating the north half of town next year. We're kind of getting into a project planning position where we do large sections of town every 5 to 7 years, versus previously the city staff would just do various sections of town annually. It got to be difficult to budget accordingly and track which streets were being done in a timely fashion. So we're trying to do large sections of town annually. So with that being said, our overall project cost for this year is anticipated to be $188,274.84. Currently, the fund balance for street maintenance is at $191,783, and that does not take into account some anticipated state aid that is yet to be designated for 2022, but is anticipated to be designated. So we have sufficient fund balance to cover the estimated project cost here in 2022. This evening, I do have 3 separate motions to cover this work. One motion for the crack filling, one motion for the seal coating, and then a third motion to cover the seal coating of the small section of Cemetery Road that was previously presented to the city council at the work session at the last meeting in April. So that being said, is there any questions for me this evening regarding these preventive maintenance street projects?
Any idea on timing?
We are hoping to do the crack filling in June and the seal coating in July. Now, we will make sure the contractors are cognitive of any kind of city celebrations, etc. But our goal is to have all the work done prior to August, just so that it can cure when the sun is hot, etc., and be fully ready for the fall and the winter.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Just that we had talked at the previous meeting that these prices that we have now are considerably higher than what was estimated, and that was due to inflation and oil prices, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. Compared to our project costs that we quoted last year, they are significantly higher. But again, that is just a direct reflection of oil prices. And our contractors that we obtained these quotes on these projects told us that right now the prices are obviously very volatile and not good for many days, and expected to continue to go higher.
And that's what I'm getting at. If we wait on this, those numbers could be changed
Right.
in a different direction.
Right. And by doing this preventive maintenance, it ultimately adds life cycle to your roads. So we know, as we've recently done some reconstruction projects, and those projects tend to be multi-million-dollar projects for small sections of road. So if we continue to do this preventive maintenance, they'll extend our road life cycle, so we can limit the amount of reconstruction projects that we have to do.
If no other questions, I will ask for a motion for the the first I.
I'll make a motion to authorize the city administrator to approve a quote from Bargain Incorporated for the purpose of conducting asphalt rubber crack repair and placing sealant material on various streets in the city of Winsted in 2022 for an amount not to exceed $38,500.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Under double I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to authorize the city administrator to approve a quote from Pearson Brothers Incorporated for the purpose of conducting bituminous seal coating on various streets in the city of Winsted in 2022 for an amount not to exceed $94,775.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Under three ayes.
A motion to authorize the city administrator to approve a quote from Pearson Brothers, Inc. for the purpose of conducting bituminous seal coating at the Winsted Public Cemetery in 2022 for an amount not to exceed $1,900.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is organizational report from Howard Lake Waverly Winstead Schools. This guy, is he a student or?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for not only introducing me and inviting me, but for that wonderful comment. I appreciate it. Well, thank you to the Winsted City Council for inviting me to come tonight. Actually, I think I was set to come in February, and it was my hope that if I could just get backed up a few months, by the time I come talk, maybe we'd know a little bit about what's going on in the legislature and how it's going to impact schools. And of course, you know, hindsight's always 20/20. We don't know really anything that's going on. So, but we'll continue to monitor that, and obviously, all of those things can have a big impact on school budgets and planning and so forth and so on. But in a nutshell, we have had what I feel has been a very good school year. Last year, when I came and presented to you, of course, we had just gone through a year of dealing with COVID restrictions and alternative schedules and different start and end times and all of those different things that came with it and all the challenges. And I think, you know, one thing that would sum up this past school year is kind of a statement of saying trying to return back to normal. Has been a challenge, but it's also been a good thing. I think it has been an opportunity for us to find the things that went well from the prior year and things we learned about, you know, not just dealing with COVID in general, but just processes and procedures that maybe we used in the past that maybe we felt we wanted to change, and things that we learned that worked really well that we want to continue in the future, whether it's technology use and some of those kinds of things. But it's been a very good school year, I think. Winsted Gymnasium has, I say it's almost complete. It looks complete from the outside, but it has been a project that has taken a lot longer than expected. I heard some of you speaking before the meeting tonight about orders and delays and shipping and things like that, and we saw our share of that during our Winsted Gymnasium project. Delays on materials, even though we had the bulk of the materials to get the shell of the building done, there were delays on things. And of course, contractors that were working on other projects in other districts or in other locations had delays on those projects, which then either set us back or bumped some things up because we were ready for certain work to be done. But in the end all, I'm happy to say that the majority of it is done. If you walked through, you probably wouldn't see a whole lot of things that you would notice that aren't finished yet. We've been using the gym now for several months, and it's a well needed space. It's been very valuable to us. I know the kids and the staff are really enjoying it, and it does give us that opportunity to have that separate space for the commons area and the cafeteria from the gymnasium. So just the flow of the day and setting up and tearing down for lunch, a lot of those things have been eliminated, and it's given us a good space to be to use not only for Phi-Ed but also for other recreation and also through community education. So that's been very good. I just had a few topics I wanted to share with you tonight. I'm not going to go in and talk too much in depth about our community survey that has gone out, but just to give everybody a little reminder, we sent out a community survey about possible levy and bond type issues, along with just trying to gather some information from community members, get a pulse on what they feel about the direction of where the district should be going, whether that's, you know, changes in different programming. I think last year maybe when I came and presented to you, we talked a little bit about, or I shared some of the things that we've been researching and talking about in terms of the trades, some of the workforce things that have gone on across our country and our state, across the world, in terms of workforce development and how that's impacting things that we are working on teaching at school, programming in STEM and STEAM, and, you know, a variety of the different trades beyond the ag program that we currently do and do really well. But the survey basically encompasses questions, just getting a pulse from the community members about operating funds, potentially a dollar amount that people might be supportive of, also how those monies might be potentially used. Same thing with facilities. We are at a point where, especially at Humphrey Elementary, we are getting really tight on space. And we added some portable classrooms to both our elementary schools, but in particular to Humphrey in the last 4 years. And we continue to need some additional space at the elementaries. So there are some questions in regards to that. There are also some questions in regards to the idea or the thought of a single elementary campus. That is not something that the board is proposing right now, but just trying to get an idea on it. Obviously, a single campus would result in some potential savings, but then on the offside of that, not having a school in all three of the communities is something that the board's very cognizant of and doesn't want to explore without, knowing more information on how people feel about that. Just an overall understanding on how people feel about taxes. Of course, I'm sure as city council members, you've heard things about, increases in taxes and valuation. No, you haven't, Mr. Mayor? And we have too. I know the county has as well. It's certainly been a difficult time during COVID the last few years. With people in terms of employment, and now of course the increase in inflation and house valuations is another thing that we need to take a look at. So, we're really trying to get an idea on, where do people want to see the district in the next 10 years and beyond. So it's not just about current operating funds. Obviously, if a levy is developed and it's not successful, the district, just like other school districts, are going to have to potentially look at some reductions. We did try for a levy in 2018 and 2019 that wasn't successful, and then the board decided with COVID, we decided to wait and just kind of see how things went. I know you talked in your audit about the American Rescue Funds. Schools received some of those funds as well, and we were able to do some things with those funds over the last 2 years that I think kind of kept us in balance in terms of potentially going out and looking for a levy increase. But those funds are going to run out. They're not going to be there forever. It's kind of one-time expenditures. So just a lot of evaluating, and we've had good survey response so far. I think this morning we had almost 600 responses so far, but we just want to get the word out there that we've got about a week or so before it closes. So anything that we can do to get more people to get us the information, how they feel about taxes, how they feel about changes at school, it's all important information. That's really what this is more about information gathering so we can make the best decisions. So along with that, though, I wanted to share some exciting news. Sometimes taxes and the idea of levies aren't very exciting, but we have 2 programs that we're currently working with our Educational Cooperative Resource Training and Solutions out of St. Cloud on. And the first one is a teacher externship, it's called, and we actually are going to be working on our first one with Millburn this year. We're hopeful that we're going to be able to get this to happen this summer. Basically what it entails is an employer or a company is willing to bring in a teacher for kind of a summer workshop for that person to be able to go around the business, learn about what the business does, learn about a variety of different things, and then take some of what they might teach in class and develop curriculum based on what they learned through being at the business, and then share that throughout the school year with the students. When we came across this program, and we immediately thought about some of our companies in Winsted and also in Howard Lake that would be great to work with. Dura Supreme's another example in Howard Lake. But unfortunately for us, for the last year and a half, we've had a vacancy in the technical education department. We had a teacher that left us, and we were unable to fill that position. And I don't know if how much you know about tech ed or industrial tech, but right now, for the 4-year degree program and be able to teach industrial technology, there's only one university in the state of Minnesota that offers that program. It's at St. Cloud State. And they're expecting about 4 to 6 graduates out of that program this year. And there's at least 40 to 50 openings that I saw for that position throughout the state of Minnesota in school districts. I am happy to say we were able to land one. A teacher that's not a graduate, but a teacher that's looking to relocate to our area. And so we're going to be able to fill that position. And one of the things that we thought would be great right from the start with filling that position is to get this new teacher involved in this teacher externship program. I do think this is a program that's going to grow, and we're going to hear more about it over the next several years. And I know that the people at Resource Training and Solutions that we work with are planning on working with school districts in central Minnesota to reach out to more of their area businesses to see if they are willing to take educators from their local school district or other school districts in the area to be able to do this. The idea is to get young students interested in those careers and potentially strengthen your ability for your workforce in terms of hiring in the future. You know, I mentioned it a little bit before, the trades, and that's one of the things that our survey asks questions about in terms of potential support of expanding the amount of trades that we're doing at our school currently, which takes shop space and equipment and some of those things, because I think we're seeing it everywhere. And I'm sure you guys are all, as council members, hearing about workforce shortages and things like that from some of our companies trying to find people. So that's an exciting program. The other one, which is a little bit more broad in its scope, not just about the trades or the manufacturing world, is a program called Future Forward. And this is something that Resource Training and Solutions and Wanda Kramer came out and presented to the school board late this past fall. And they have a lot of work to do with getting it up and running it, but they've been using a program similar to this in southeastern Minnesota with a lot of companies there to try and expose youth to the different job opportunities within their communities. Some of the smaller communities that you see in southern Minnesota, not unlike our school communities here in Howard Lake, Waverly, Winsted. But what it is it's an opportunity. It is an online platform with the opportunity then to extend things like mentorship, guest speakers, job shadowing experiences from different companies, public entities, for example. Maybe Mr. Burkholz would like to take in some job shadowing in the future. But what it is Future Forward and Resource Training and Solutions is offering an opportunity, and actually it's being paid for through a grant through the central, it's the library. I'm sorry, I forget. The Great Lakes Library, Great River Library Consortium is helping fund this with Resource Training and Solutions. And so there will be minimal, if any, cost to businesses. But once we get this up and running, we'll be sending out information to businesses to see if they would like to showcase their business through this online platform. It's a way for teachers in schools to, when they're talking about career development, to go online and expose students to different businesses within their communities that they can learn about. There's the opportunity then for maybe a guest speaker to come out, or even someone from that business to maybe take some time to mentor or talk to students about opportunities and careers within our communities. So I wanted to share that with you just because those are two really exciting programs that really don't come with a lot of cost, but really we are excited about from the opportunity of, beyond the core academics, looking at ways to connect our, not only our high school students, but even our middle school students as they're starting to think about what they want to do in high school and what kinds of classes they want to take, to be able to expose them to those opportunities, not only in the trades, but also those work opportunities within their communities. I think we've seen a lot on the news. We've seen a lot, the legislature talking about college debt. And we have the most students that we've had in the last 10 years, I would say, going and exploring, taking courses over at the Wright Tech Center next year. I think we have about 24 or 26 students registered. About 5 or 6 years ago, that number was down as low as maybe 6 or 8 students wanting to go over and take those courses in construction, healthcare, childcare, cosmetology, some different kinds of hands-on courses compared to the academic type courses that we might offer in a traditional high school setting. So it's obvious that students and I think parents are starting to see the benefits of children, exploring those careers and going and potentially earning a good wage and making a career out of those. Whereas I think 10 years ago, schools were really being told, well, you need to push everybody to go to four-year college. That was coming from the legislature, it was coming from the Department of Ed, so we're seeing kind of a change there. Unfortunately, I think it's probably a little too late to address a lot of the issues that we're having right now, but hopefully in the end we're able to continue to provide what students need in order to explore those careers. I did mention just a little bit about staffing. I wanted to share with you that we're not unlike any other school district that's seeing its staffing challenges throughout the past couple of years. But I wanted to share some statistics with you just so you kind of are aware. I heard on the news the other day that there have been 345,000 teachers that have left the profession across the country in the last 2 years. And just the other day, as we were posting for a position that opened in our district, I was looking at EdPost, which is an education job site that St. Cloud State operates. There were 8,300 school openings across the state of Minnesota. Now, that's not all teachers, but that's administrators, paraprofessionals, some custodial positions, food service positions, but schools are definitely seeing some of the same things in terms of workforce that the public is seeing in industry and things like that. But just to let you know, we do have some openings in our school district. We currently have 3 coaching openings, a couple childcare staff openings, 1 in food service. We have 7 teaching staff positions that are open, and 1 office staff position that we'll be interviewing for next week. But in the end, that's not a lot of positions maybe compared to other years, but I know it's going to be more of a challenge this year to find people to fill those positions. So I just share that with you as just kind of an update on where we're at with staffing. And then the last thing I wanted to share with you, that's something new as well, our community education department, and last year we hired this year we hired a new community education director, Rachel Bender, who grew up in our area and went to our school, graduated from Howard Lake Waverly Winsted. She is looking at starting a wraparound child care program for preschool students. So it's something that our district hasn't had in the past, but we do feel that we have some space at the middle school and high school, a classroom to be able to do this. So what it entails basically is that for parents who are looking for child care opposite of their preschool, so children go to preschool half days, 2 or 3 days a week, that there would be a child care option at school for those students to stay. So we're looking at that. We're doing some surveys of parents right now. If we can find the staff to be able to do it, it's an option that we're looking at offering this coming fall. So that's pretty exciting because I know that child care is something that a lot of people are continuing to struggle with, trying to find people to watch your children when they're not at school. We haven't delved into the infant care or below preschool. That is another, let's just say, beast in and of itself because of licensing and all of those kinds of things that come with it. But we thought this would be a good start to be able to potentially look at offering this for next school year. So But that's kind of my update. Like I said, I think we've had a great school year. It's been a challenge to kind of get back to normal, just because children haven't been with each other as much as maybe they were in the past. So all those socialization things and learning how to follow rules and get along with each other, and school's a little more structured maybe than playtime and things like that. But it's been good. We're looking forward to the last 19 and a half days of school left. And we have an exciting summer filled with some small projects around the district, not a lot. But we do have one exciting project that I'll share with you, and that is that Mr. Winiger and Ms. Glessing, our two ag teachers, are going to be busy doing some tree planting across County Road 6. This last fall into winter, we were able to purchase the farm site that was within the high school, middle school property. That farm site was held onto by the owner, but the owner passed away within the last year or so, I believe, and so the family wanted to sell the farm, and they gave us the first option to do that. So we purchased that 4.5 acre farm site, which was essentially almost right in the middle of our property, thinking that in the future, if we do need that space for any expansion of ball fields or parking or maybe a facility, it probably wasn't going to come up for sale that often. And so it's one of those things we had to kind of bite the bullet and make the decision to do that for the long term of the district. We also then made the decision to purchase the 36 acres that was across the road that went with the farm site. We did that for a number of different reasons, but primarily knowing that if we're going to do any construction of things, it's going to be on the east side of the road where the other buildings currently are. And if we do construction and expand on that site, our ag program will lose their crop plot that they currently have on the east side of the road. And so this gives them an opportunity to have a future crop plot if it's needed. So we'll work with the FFA alumni, and they'll put some crop on it to earn some income to help cover some of the taxes on it. And then Mr. Winiger is actually, and Ms. Glessing are in the process of, they're going to plant some fruit trees on some of it so that the kids can study different kinds of apples and different fruits. And then they're actually looking at doing some sweet corn this year that they can sell as part of their CSA program. So as you know, they got the big garden, and you can buy shares in the garden, and they want to be able to have some sweet corn available to people, a little bit more than what they've been able to have in the past. So it's going to go to good use while it sits there for us to decide, in the future, what might we use it for. But it wasn't like we thought we needed to go buy land somewhere down the road or something. It was like, it's right here. We have to, do this while we can, because who knows where it would go into the future and would it be available to us. So we're using our capital funds to make those payments on that bond right now. So that's all I had.
I have one comment. I understand that you stepped forward and probably hired the best football coach you could possibly hire in the state. So we're wishing him and you all the luck in the world. The other comment is that I think in the past, we have invited some of your student body to come up and present like your arts program, your 4-H program, and please let them know that we love having them. They're always entertaining, and we do have some great questions we like to ask them. So just let them know that if they want to come up, let us know what would be available, and we'll sure try and get them in.
Okay, that would be great. I know one group that potentially will be new to us next school year that we might be able to set something up with is, I mentioned briefly about the new industrial tech teacher that we were able to hire. She also comes to us with a robotics background, having done robotics for St. Cloud State. So we do have money set aside. We've had money set aside for the last couple of years, but during COVID, we weren't able to find someone to get the program going. So now we've hired someone that potentially can get a robotics program for us going. So that might be a great student group to come down and talk a little bit about what they've done throughout the school year next year. So, but we've got some others we can always send your way too. So, and I'm not going to argue about the hire. That was we're very excited as well. So. I didn't know if I could call him coach when I came in. I did the other day when I saw him. So I don't know if under this setting I can call him coach.
Been called a lot worse.
That's after the season.
But thank you.
Two things. One, he only has a 1-year contract, right?
Well, no, actually head coaches have a continuing contract unless the district was decide to part ways with them, then we would have to work on that. But no, head coaches usually have a little bit more stability. So you're not concerned or anything, are you? Okay.
We'll talk.
You're not looking at assigning him other duties, no? Because otherwise we may have to talk. Then.
I guess I do have a serious question.
Yeah.
What do you consider the biggest challenge for the district going forward?
I would say that of all the things that, I talked about, finances and levy and facilities and things like that, staffing, I would say the one challenge that we face in education is just continuing to have the support of, and I'm not talking about just financial, but just overall, I think we've seen, and I can say that as a school superintendent in our district, we've had tremendous support, but you see across the country and other parts of the country, maybe some bashing of education,
Or school boards?
or school boards, and it's been it's been difficult, especially the last few years, to overcome some of that. Like I said, I think we've had a lot of great support from our families and our communities, but my fear is that more of that happening other places. You wonder about how that will impact how people feel about either their own school or maybe how people might feel about getting into education. And will they want to, will they be fearful of, well, is that what it's become? Are people really that upset with their schools? Maybe I don't want to go into that for, for a career, or I might not want to take a position in that. And that's ultimately then going to be a trickle-down effect. So that would be my one biggest concern, because I think we're always trying to find ways to improve and accommodate and meet needs. I do think that school has become more individualized than maybe it's ever been, because you have a variety of children and families that come in with a variety of different needs, and we want to try and meet them all the best that we can. But I remember when I went to school, it was kind of like, well, this is the way we do it, and you got to go along with it. But there's lots of different things, whether it's medical concerns or academic concerns, different things. So we try to meet the needs of everybody the best way we can, and sometimes that comes with challenges. But that would be the biggest thing, I think: continued support for schools, just in general.
I remember talking to a teacher who taught for a long time and since retired, and he made the comment 30 years ago, the kids that came in, most had two parents. And now it's like half the students are one parent, family, which affects those kids.
Yeah, I would say that statistic is pretty close to what I've seen in not only in our school district but in other school districts I've talked to or worked with. And that does pose, I think, some challenges, you know, whether it's which parent is the child with this week or that week, what's the schedule, it affects their activities, getting to go here and there, so forth and so on. Communication then is a challenge as well. But we try to work through that the best way we can and support the kids, you know, whichever situation they might be in. But I have heard that has had some impact on, you know, it just makes it a little bit more of a challenge maybe.
Thank you.
If I may, council members, I would be remiss if I didn't comment on this. I know I've done this in the past, but from a community development perspective, an economic development perspective, the partnership between cities and schools is really paramount. And our community members should be looking at it this way too, or at least I believe they should. I think we all want the same thing: vibrant, sustainable communities. In order to do that, you have to have strong businesses, strong housing, etc. And you can't have those strong businesses and housing without the workforce. And the workforce is attracted by strong amenities, whether it's recreational amenities, whether it's school districts, educational opportunities, healthcare. It all plays a role. It's all part of the puzzle piece of these vibrant, strong communities. So without your efforts, and I applaud your efforts, Mr. Sellner, of creating that school district, that strong school district, that's going to help us have a strong, viable, sustainable community. Absolutely. 100%. From an economic development perspective, strictly, we're in a crisis right now of workforce shortage. Not just Winsted, not just the state of Minnesota, but nationwide. So cities have to work to get creative to help attract workforce or help sustain that workforce. And that's working with school districts and different educational opportunities like the teacher externships and the Future Forward. That's how we're going to create our workforce and set ourselves apart as we work to not only keep our current businesses, support our businesses, but also attract more business. So again, I applaud you for those efforts. That helps us from an economic development perspective 100%. And I look forward to helping support you in any way we can from the city's perspective. So thank you, Mr. Sellner.
Thank you. And we look forward to our relationship with all of our city councils that we have. It's been good. And we're looking forward to, you know, whatever the future may bring. We always want to work together and do what's best for our communities. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
and then we got to get a few football wins, right? No pressure.
Thank you, Mr. Sellner.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We've come to the open forum, and I do not see anybody out there that wants to use it unless our police chief, Mr. Justin Hill, would like to come up and talk to us. If not, then I'm going to turn it over to Adam if he has anything.
Just real quickly, the city of Winston is seeking applicants for the administrative assistant position. That application deadline, I believe, is May 19th. Available via our website, those applications. Planning and Zoning has a meeting on Monday evening, May 9th. There's going to be some dialogue regarding our animal ordinance and a request to review that ordinance to potentially allow chickens. So we'll have that discussion on Monday evening. And then lastly, the EDA is scheduled to meet on May 19th. One of the agenda items will be a proposal received regarding the sale of the current feed mill property. I'm excited to present that to the EDA, and hopefully we can make some progress in our efforts to remove those blighted structures, et cetera, and bring a business to that parcel.
Yes.
That being said, that's all that I have this evening, unless there's any questions for me.
If not, I'll look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to quit.
Quit.
To quit. Don't give her,
Quit.
don't give her any more water.
I'll second.
I don't know if I have a motion, but I'm going to say I do. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.